Hello. Okay, so we've got 3 badass people here right now. 3 badass coaches, and we all felt inspired to come together for a really awesome conversation that is like has no other point than just to have this conversation and put it out there into the world.
Right.
And
we're not selling anything yet.
Although we should. But it's really just about this conversation that we all felt very led and inspired to have. And based off of and inspired from a Facebook post that I made related to veganism and death and suffering. And I basically came out of the spiritual closet where I shared what I really, really believe spiritually, that to some people could seem very radical. And it's just really what I feel and believe. And I think that this is a conversation that just really needs to be had. And I think a lot of spiritual people really feel the way that we feel, but maybe are afraid to like say that opinion out loud or on the internet.
Or don't feel how we feel and think we're batshit crazy and really just need to be triggered by this conversation. So,
or you can disagree with us, and that's totally fine.
You're allowed to disagree.
Or they don't really know what they truly stand for as well. Some people, you know?
Yeah, totally. Totally. So we wanted to have a good chat about veganism, death, suffering,
activism,
all kinds of good stuff.
Right.
Law of attraction. But first, we're going to introduce ourselves. And my name is Genevieve Rackham, and I am a love coach. I work with people in manifesting their soulmate relationship. We work on self-love, codependency, limiting beliefs around relationships. And I'm a really, really, really big believer in the law of attraction. And that's the biggest thing that I use, the biggest tool that I use with my clients in manifesting their soulmate relationship. But also, it's something that I just really fully believe and practice in my own life in every area that I believe has created the relationship I have now and my business and a lot of things that were once just thoughts in my mind. And so I just really believe in the law of attraction.
Yeah. I'm Genevieve, and I basically help everyone in the whole world who's receptive to me do that, except with money. Do the same thing, just with money. So manifest the fucking fuck out of money. So I'm really into the law of attraction and shifting self-worth, limiting beliefs, limiting ideas around money and earning. And I just really believe that making a lot of money, doing the work you feel called to do in the world should be really fucking easy, really fucking fun, and just really fucking consistent. So.
Yeah, totally. And I'm Brett. I'm also a coach around self-worth, just basically helping people to clear up their shit around their beliefs around who they are, just so they can feel free, live their truth, and just fucking love life so much more than what they might be living right now. So yeah, that's the main thing. I'm all about really same kind of thing as you guys, you know, clearing limiting beliefs up, just getting very, very deep into who we really are and owning our worthiness is really where I'm going with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. I feel like, and maybe this will lead into our conversation.
And we're also all vegans, by the way.
Oh yeah, we are all vegans.
Correct.
Really important thing to say there. I feel like something that I want to say that I feel like will lead into this conversation is I really deeply believe that because of the law of attraction and whatever else, I believe that life is supposed to be really amazing. I believe that life is supposed to feel good, and I believe that we can have whatever it is that we want. And I think that all of us here on this call, what we all really want is to be the best versions of ourselves, live our best lives, and really allow other people to do the same, people and animals and planet included.
Right.
So
planets.
Yeah.
Different conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I throw in the random shit.
Yeah. But basically I think that, yeah, I don't know, like this is a conversation I've seen a lot online recently when it comes to, maybe not a lot.
So basically we just want to talk
activism
right,
with the law of attraction.
Right. We want to talk about like activism and the law of attraction and our perspective on that and veganism and just like all of that good shit and just offer our perspectives on it being diehard law of attraction people. So who wants to start?
Does anybody feel inspired to go first? Otherwise I can.
Go for it, Jenna.
Okay. So basically, I really, again, leading out this post that I put out there, something that I've always really been about is like seeking truth, right? The things that have led me onto this path of the law of attraction were, hey, I have these really big desires and I want to feel really good. How does that actually work? How do those things go together? And, you know,
like desire for well-being, like in money and love in your body and life and the planet, everything.
Yeah, for sure. And I went vegan at a young age of 15. I've been vegan for about 7 years. And my really big intention, like I went vegan around the time that I kind of opened up to spirituality. And at the time, I had a lot of suffering that I was letting go of. We had like this abusive
victimization and things like that, right?
We were kind of experiencing this like abusive situation in our childhood, and it really pushed me spiritually. It really challenged me spiritually to seek like truth. And along that path, I also stumbled upon like veganism, because not only did I like want to feel good and not suffer and not be a victim, but I also wanted to not hurt anything and
alleviate that for other beings.
Yeah. So I naturally went vegan for, you know, I really believe that going vegan would help the planet, would not hurt animals, and would actually, even if I'm being totally honest, I had this like spiritual woo-woo belief around like, if I'm eating these animals that have trauma, I'm taking that on into my energy, and that's not good for me either. And also just all this stuff that you see out there around like in the vegan community, at least, around like why meat and dairy is so bad for your health. So it just seemed like logical and a win-win-win to go vegan. And as somebody that's constantly just growing and evolving to be the best version of myself, and always having an open mind and really trusting what I feel, I feel like in the last couple of years, I've been really challenged around my beliefs around veganism. Whereas when I first went vegan, I was like, what the fuck is everybody else doing? Why isn't everybody else vegan?
Yeah, if you're not vegan, you're a douche.
Yeah, if you're not vegan, like, what are you doing? Yeah. And that's just not, I just don't feel that.
Or like
way
you're
anymore.
an ignorant zombie, or whatever.
Yeah, like you're so cruel and ignorant, like, oh
right.
my God.
And I think what initially pulled us to veganism, like what Gianna said, but I feel like we should emphasize this, is like we were identifying with feeling victimized in our life in some way, shape, or form. We felt powerless, right? So in going vegan and having this desire, because we loved animals so much, and like literally we watched this video called like Meet Your Meat, like this PETA video.
I don't know if I watched
Well, I watched that and I was like, what the fuck? Like, so fucked up. And it like made me cry. It just made me feel all these kinds of feelings. I was like, the world is such a fucked up place and I have to change the fucked up world. Right?
Which is the ultimate vibration of like, there's something wrong.
Right. And us believing in the law of attraction and like really taking that on fully in every aspect of our lives, it bled into our views on veganism, right? So like when you, like law of attraction means that which is like unto itself is drawn, right? So what you focus on, you get more of. There is no such thing as no, just what your attention's on, you invite more of, right?
Yeah, like for example, this is, I don't know why, maybe this is just me because I used to really have such a bad money mindset, so this clicks for me. But like, it's kind of like when you're worried about money, like you're focused on money, but you're focused on like the absence of money.
Right.
So like if you're worried about money, that's not when the money comes. It's when you chill the fuck out, when you surrender, that's when it comes, right?
Right.
Because
so you can focus on any subject from two different vibrations.
The having or the absence of it.
The having of what you want or the absence of what you want. And this applies to everything like veganism, money, relationships, the health and vitality of your body, everything. Right. And so when we were identifying, we were focused on our lives, the contrast of our lives and our childhood of like the abuse we were experiencing. And we were like, oh my God, this is bad. And we were identifying with like, this is what I don't want, what I don't want, what I don't want. And we were focused on basically attracting more of that. And then from that inspiration, our path of least resistance to well-being at the point in time was to go vegan. Right?
I feel like, Brett, what was your like intention in going vegan? Like what were your driving reasons?
When I went vegan, it was actually mainly around health. Yes, I kind of had watched some docos and figured it was gonna help the planet, you know, but the main part was I tried so many different diets and I was just like, I learned a bit more about the digestive system of the body. I was like, I just want more energy to do the things I want. So if the digestive process is taking so much energy from eating animals and animal products, I'm just going to try to eliminate them and see how I feel. And I just kept feeling better and better and better, like eliminating dairy and then meat and then eggs and all the rest of it. And I was like, I feel fucking amazing, you know? And then probably 3 months into eating vegan, that's when I was like, holy shit, there's like this whole bigger picture. And that's when I had a bit more of like, I guess, a more spiritual aspect to it. Like, I'm really doing something that's affecting more people, and in terms of the animals, and really just seeing that. I guess that's when I was more like, not the victim kind of mindset, but it was just saying like, holy fuck, like there could be a whole new way of looking at this from a much broader perspective. But I guess because, yes, okay, it's frozen.
Is it frozen?
No, that's good. It's good. This whole new perspective of like, not so much about like everyone should be doing this, but it was more from a place of, I can feel this good and it feels super aligned. I've got like much less guilt and much less shame. I'm not saying that's the actual way to do that and get to that place, but you can still eat meat and actually feel no guilt. Like, it's not about that. It's just more about what felt so right for me, and to keep moving in that way. And just like, it became more a bit like an exploration to myself, like what feels good today, what feels good today, what feels good today. And that, like, it really shaped how I live my life, like listening to my body more, just becoming more in tune with what I really want, rather than just like eating in the same way and thinking the same way about food and about everything else. So that's kind of what got me into it. And now it still feels good. But the thing is, I'm actually not attached to staying vegan. And this is one thing that like people they get a bit tense about sometimes, because I might be inspired to actually eat animal products one day. Again, I'm not saying that I never will. Right now, that doesn't feel anyway, like it doesn't feel close to me at all. But I'm not saying that
earlier.
Right.
What's that?
I said that's exactly, because we were having this conversation with Genevieve's in-person assistant. We were talking about this, and I said the exact same thing that you just said. I was like, to me, like, being a vegan is such a habit, and like, you know, where I feel like not like meat and dairy, there's such a voice there that says like, there's a reaction of ew. And like, I'm also just so used to not eating those things that like, it feels like not in my reality right now. But again, like, I'm open to that changing. I'm not going to go out of my way, but like, you know, I've got a lot of years left to go on this planet. Like, I'll never say never. And I feel like when you say never to something, you're really boxing yourself in and
definitely
allowing yourself to feel like not free and trapping yourself in
a limiting idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Not a
I remember like, probably 2 years in, I was like, oh, there's a fish oil supplement that I really wanted to take. And I actually took it like for a month, right? So, but back then I was
You're
like,
not a vegan anymore.
Exactly. Oh my God, at the vegan club, like, you know, like I didn't want anyone to know. I seriously was like, don't tell anyone about this, because I was like, oh my God, I'm in the fucking system. I'm in the box. I've got the label and it's trapped me already. And I was just like, doesn't feel good. Like, I want to be able to do what I want and what I really feel inspired to do.
Right.
In all of life, you know? So even from that, I feel like just saying that, people might be like, oh, he's not vegan then. Like, you know, and I don't care about the label so much, but that's what I eat every day. I don't actually consume animal products like on a day-to-day basis. And that's just, I don't mind about the label, but that's just how I eat. Simple, you know?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely think, because I mean, and this is something when I posted that post, or like why I actually wrote that post was because my boyfriend and I, Justin, like, I was launching this course recently on codependency, and we were doing this Facebook Live where we were talking about, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but it was stuff related to relationships. And I was doing the Facebook Live in her bedroom because we all live together. And she was out of town because the lighting in her room is really good. And I was like, I'm going to go do it in there. And I tagged her in the video. I was like, okay, we're going to talk about like, oh yeah, it was like, we're going to talk about why cheating is no big deal. And like, blah, 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 like whatever, something like that. And come
changing all the social constructs.
Yeah. And I was like, and come hang out with me while I'm in Genevieve's bedroom or whatever. And so I tagged her in the video. So she came online because she saw that I tagged her in it. And she was like, oh my gosh, like now you're in my room. And she's just giving me shit. She's just joking. Yeah. And she was like, first you like got my Chanel bag and now you're in my bedroom, because she had just, she was out of town and she ordered a Chanel bag online and it arrived like while she was out of town, and I opened it. And so we were just kind of talking about that. And then someone that was watching the video had commented and said, oh, that's made out of murdered animal flesh, like Chanel bag. Oh my God. And then I was like, and I just kind of like ignored them. Was like, whatever, like they're trolling the comments. And, you know, not that their intention was to be a troll in the sense where they were trying to be like disrespectful or whatever. Although I think maybe the terminology was a bit crude. And it's their version of trying to be like, oh my gosh, like I'm just being real as a vegan or whatever. But that was just not the point of the video. So it was trolling to me, because they're like trying to use my platform to get their message out there when it's not the point. And if I wanted to make a video about veganism, I would. So it felt like trolling and not really super respectful. So I kind of like just ignored them. And then my boyfriend, who is kind of a bit more of a social justice warrior than I am, kind of took time to acknowledge her comment. And I just like was on the video and I was like, Justin, because my boyfriend's name is Justin, then relax. Our dog is
at our feet going, what?
He's talking to us. But he kind of acknowledged her comment. Then, you know, one sec. You know what? Will you go grab a ball off the fridge and give it to him? Okay. He is like obsessed with tennis balls, so he's crying because one was stuck under the couch and he's not getting it right now. So we're gonna distract him with another one. But basically, I said to my boyfriend, I was like, okay, Justin, like, you know, she's kind of trolling right now. Like, you know, if you want to like have a conversation with her, like do that on your own live stream, or like talk to her some other time. He was like, this is not what this is about. And he was like, okay, yeah, it's all right. And I was like, it's cool. And, you know, she didn't comment until like at the end of the video, where I don't remember what she said, but she kind of like started being like aggressive and rude. And eventually the conversation, which was funny to me because I was like, it wasn't even my Chanel bag, first of all. But second of all, I'm still a vegan. I'm still a vegan. So like, you know, I was like, okay. So she started being aggressive and I was like, okay, like I get it. Like I get your message, I get your intention. But like, you know, maybe, you know, if you really want to be helpful towards animals in that way, then maybe you should go tell this message to people that aren't already vegan, you know? And that just really set her off. And she was like, I'm more of an activist than you'll ever be, honey, nah, nah, nah. And I was like, okay, it wasn't what I was saying, but it just like set her off. And she ended up calling me a plant-based Becky. And
because it obviously triggered her.
Yeah, right? Yeah, right. And so like,
because there was like this belief she felt the need to defend. And whenever I feel like you feel the need to defend a belief, it always has to do with like you're not feeling secure within your own belief.
But that's like, that was, you know, that's what a lot of vegans see and activism see. It's like any time to get the message out there is like, it's helpful or whatever. Even when it comes off very aggressive and rude, they feel like that's still productive, and maybe it can be at times in ways. But I was just so not like receptive to that. And I was just like, you know, I just didn't get into it with her. It was like she was kind of fighting herself with me, you know, like I just didn't really engage her bullshit. I was like, okay, better go make a live stream about it. Like, good luck, you know? And she was just like, you're just a plant-based Becky bitch or whatever. And, you know, because plant-based is like, you just eat vegan. You don't actually give a shit about the ethics of veganism. So you're not allowed to call yourself a vegan, right? And so that's kind of what she was coming at me with. And so that's what really inspired the post that I wrote, where I really kind of came out with like what I really feel, because some of my other friends and followers online who were also vegan were kind of like, okay, I'm confused. Like, what's your perspective? And I just feel like I just wanted to just put it out there and really say some like leading edge truth to me that felt like very leading edge. Right. And so I wrote that post that got a lot of engagement and a lot of massive support, but also triggered some of my vegan friends for sure, and got me unfriended by some of those people. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of things like when it comes to activism in general, not just with veganism, it's really rooted in a lot of pain, and that pain
and like trauma bonding.
Yeah, it's rooted in a lot of trauma and victimization and all that kind of stuff. And I think that it can be really hard for those people to hear, you know, a law of attraction perspective, because it maybe feels a bit invalidating
to their feelings.
And granted, like, I totally get it, because I know at the time when I became a vegan and I was in a lot of victimization, in my, like, around, like, experiencing, like, child abuse, basically. If anybody were to have told me, like, hey, you create your own reality, I would have wanted to, like, punch somebody in the face.
Right.
Like, what do you mean this is my fault? Like, it would have just made it feel like it's
like,
not, like,
it's like blame.
blame.
It feels like blame.
Like, it feels like victim blaming, right?
Right. And when you feel powerless, you're like, it's not your own creation, or at least not intentionally. It feels bad to feel like you have to take responsibility for it, because it feels like guilt and shame, like you're doing something wrong, you're being something wrong or something.
Right. But I just think it's so important to have, like, even when you get triggered, to just keep an open mind and, like, really be willing to, like, put something through your filter of truth and what you know to be true, and put away the claws for a second and just check in with yourself, you know?
Definitely. I think that, like, even coming from a place of victimhood, it's really, we are seeking validation, and we want people to either, like, empathize with us or sympathize with us. But if you actually come from a more empowered place, which is like compassion, then you can really actually do something about it. And this is what we're talking about, activism. If you act from that compassionate place, empowered, rather than being like this place of lack, seeing what's absent and really having that kind of a different kind of, there's a whole different energy involved.
Right.
Right.
We really begin to focus. Sorry.
Right. Oh, sorry. It's like
Go for it.
the three-way thing going on here. So
2 is hard enough.
So I feel like my perspective, like, I'm a really deeply spiritual person. Like, I just feel like life,
like, our life is just not based on logic.
It's just not. It's like, we live very spiritual
We
lives.
live
Like,
very illogical lives. Like, the things that we've been able to
like,
create
if somebody
don't make sense.
Yes.
Right.
Totally.
Right. So I feel like we had a very contrasting, diverse, challenging upbringing, and that really stimulated us to seek well-being. And in seeking that well-being, or it really gave us the strong, deep desire to seek well-being and to have well-being and to experience well-being in money, relationships, love, our bodies, money, just fucking everything, right? And so in that desire for that well-being and seeking that out, I just feel like life kind of led us here. And now I have this really just deep core belief that everything's always working out for everybody, every single animal, every single person, every single being on this entire planet, the planet itself. And I think that
it's a more general picture.
It's a very general, broader perspective that I kind of function and live my life from, and Gianna does too, and I'm sure you do as well, right?
Yeah, it sounds like.
But I feel like a lot of us law of attraction people, we really, when we get deep into this law of attraction work and beyond just like, oh, I read the book The Secret, which is like, that's a great starting point, and not making fun of it at all.
I might be making fun of it a little bit.
But like, when you move really deeply into the work, because you have a strong desire to just like have a really satisfying life and just feel really fucking good and just have the things that you want because you fucking get to, like, you really just kind of tap into these core ideals that have existed within you all along, which is like, for me,
and challenge what isn't
aligned with that, right? So in your perspectives about money, relationships, and you know, even your beliefs about, you know, your diet or your choice of how you contribute to the world or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like
that was a big thing for me too, like the diet part. Like, I was a crazy dieter.
Right. And I just feel like I just eventually took on this belief of like, everything's always working out for everybody, right? And from that belief and perspective,
I'll go do it.
we have dogs that are seriously like little babies. They're so high maintenance sometimes. So essentially, he's like, no, don't take the ball. But essentially, like, in having that broader perspective or that view of everything's always working out for you, it's easy to surrender to that perspective when you see yourself as more than a body. When you see yourself as more than
and you look at the bigger picture.
And you look at the bigger picture of like, we're all souls, we're all energy, right? And then from that perspective, there's not so much of an attachment to your physical body or physical bodies in general, right? And you allow yourself to freely just be in alignment and be guided, right? And sometimes from that guidance, you're inspired to buy a Chanel bag or eat a fucking cheeseburger or be a vegan or like whatever. And I think when you look at the world like a giant contrasting, diverse puzzle, and we all just perfectly fit together when we follow our core beliefs and our core truths, or like, and we get into alignment and we feel good, we'll be guided to be the perfect puzzle piece for the perfect planet of how it's perfectly supposed to be, instead of trying to fix it and force it to be this thing that it, honestly, if world peace was a thing, like if everything was perfect and good all the time, like there would be no expansion, right? There would be no bouncing off point anymore, and that would go away, and then we would stop expanding. And I believe that the purpose of living, the purpose of being alive is to expand, is to joyously expand, as Abraham Hicks says. I love Abraham Hicks. If you didn't know that about me, people watching. But like in that expansion, you need diversity, you need bouncing off points, you need variety, you need a buffet, right? You need experiences, contrast, whatever, so that you're allowed to form your preferences and then get into alignment and follow what you feel called to do. And sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that, but it's like, I feel like when you surrender to that perspective, you release these guilt and this guilt and this shame and these limiting ideas of like what you should and should not be doing and being a spiritual person or being a good person. Right. And I feel like that's kind of a big part of the conversation we wanted to have, or at least what I wanted to have about this. And like sometimes when I'm in alignment, like I can't even honestly articulate all the core desires I have just in living this life that I've lived and other lives that I've lived or whatever. But I just know I have desire going on within me, deep, big desires to be really well financially, to be well physically, to be well emotionally, to be well in my relationships, in my romantic relationships, in my sexuality, just in the world and whatever. And I think we all have that same core desire for deep desire for well-being in whatever way.
I feel like that's who we really are, like as souls. And this is the extra spiritual woo-woo aspect of it, right? Which is like that, and you know, this is a story that I like to tell to people as maybe a little bit of a background. I feel like when I first started opening up spiritually and seeking the truth and things, I started meditating and all that. And I started having these like really interesting experiences when I would meditate, and it felt just like a full body orgasm. I don't even know how to explain it. Like it wasn't just physical though. It was like mental and emotional, and I don't even know how to explain it. Like it felt like all the goodness at once that you could possibly experience. Like it felt like orgasm. It felt like being in love. It felt like my dog licking my face, which speaking of, he's talking like here. Great. It felt like my grandma taking me to Disneyland. Like it just felt like everything at once. Like there was no separation. And to me, I just got this deep knowing, which is like spirituality 101, right? We're all one, right? And that just felt like I was feeling this oneness of God, of who we really are, which is love, pure positive energy, which is why I so deeply resonate with like when Abraham Hicks calls God or source pure positive energy. Because I was like, that's exactly what it is. It feels like pure positive energy. And I feel like that's what we all naturally gravitate towards because that's our inherent nature as like souls.
Right. And also like, I don't feel like, I feel like as being alive and being physical, there is the ability to experience pain and trauma or whatever. But I think that pain and trauma is there for a reason to create more well-being in the world. Right. And so
well, expansion, because I feel like when you look at the bigger picture, it's not really bad or scary.
Right. Right. And when you're more like, when it's about joyous expansion and we're all here just to joyously expand and play the part in joyous expansion, there's not so much of an over-identification with like how we're hurting or what's hurting right now or what we can do to like make it better or whatever. There's more just this surrendering to the broader perspective and allowing things to flow.
I feel like I just want to say this, and then I feel like I definitely want to give Brett some room to chat here.
Yeah, because we're just kind of like taking
we just like bounce off of each other.
We used to do YouTube videos. Yeah, it's a thing.
But I feel like it's kind of like, because you know people say like you don't have to suffer to expand, and that's very true. Like I know I'm very inspired by certain people that I follow online where they have this like very cool lifestyle where they're traveling all over the world, and that is a bit of expansion for me.
You expand through desire.
Yeah, you expand through desire. Right. So that can be through suffering and that can be through being inspired.
Right. You can create desire through suffering or, right.
But I feel like it's kind of like, I don't know why this comes to mind, but it's kind of like when you spend money, people could say, oh, that's bad, don't spend money. But it's like, if you have this knowing that there's, excuse me, kombucha burps. I'm drinking kombucha at the same time, so it's making me a little burpy. But I feel like when you come from this knowing that you have plenty of money, spending it doesn't become a bad thing because it doesn't actually take away from anything, right? So when you have this deep knowing that like love is who we really are and nothing and no one
and we have an
could
unlimited
ever
amount.
fuck with that or take away from that, no matter how bad or scary life seems to be, or no matter what happens to you. And I've had some pretty shitty things happen to me before. So
basically all the things.
So basically, I just want you to know that like this is coming from a person that has experienced a lot of trauma, and so it can maybe seem like I'm so privileged and I don't get it. And you know, in ways I am privileged, but I have experienced a lot of things that would not be privileged, and still I'm able to know that from having those experiences, because it's like I know, and this is what really helped me overcome like certain like sexual traumas in the past, was to know that like that's not something that anybody else can take away from me. And I think that like when you know that like nothing can deteriorate the well-being of God, of who we all really are, then we get this different perspective on suffering and death, and it's not really suffering and death, or it's not really suffering anymore.
Yeah, it's just like a contrasting experience.
Yeah.
And it's just not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I don't know. What do you think, Brett?
That's actually exactly like what I want to talk about as well. The idea of suffering, our version of suffering and what pain looks like, and our ideas of death as humans versus animals, for example, with this talk, because we don't really know how they perceive these things. We don't know what animal consciousness is like. We don't know how they understand death. We don't know their connection to themselves. We don't know if they're more spiritually connected to the universe and the idea of oneness and unity than we are. And I would say they probably are. If you actually look at the way they behave, like in terms of love, they do what's natural to them. That's what it's all about. They're more connected to nature than we generally are as human beings, and act in more aligned ways as to
Exhibit A.
To self. Sorry?
I said Exhibit A.
Exactly.
They're loving this conversation.
Apparently.
Yeah.
So I just think that what you said, Jana, especially in terms of like realizing that we are all, of course, I know it is a bit out there and it's that big thinking, like we're all one, but it's true. We are all energy. And if we can actually really get a taste of that and more and more and more, then we can start like, you become more accepting of everyone else's belief systems, because it's, you know that it's all part of the same thing. We're all human in this way, and we're allowed to think differently, but it's this whole idea of like separation, especially from even like vegan, non-vegan. It's like we create this distance between ourselves and we lose our connection. And it's like, even going back to what you said, Genevieve, it's like the guilt and shame comes in when you start like blaming other people and being like, no, my version is better than yours kind of thing. And it's like, there's no need for that. We hold on to this guilt because of those reasons, because of all this separation already. Like, it's more just being okay with where we're at right now. Like, I think that is what it comes down to. And it comes from this deep belief as well of that everything is working out for us. You know, we don't really need to try and like put ourselves so far out in the future or back in the past. It's like right now, if we can drop into an understanding and knowing that things are working out and I'm okay right now as I am, without actually changing anything in this moment, then I think that's what's going to really like, we're just going to be so much more cool with everything, and our understanding of suffering, of pain, of death. There's going to be less fear. We're going to be able to embrace the contrast even more without actually like trying to fight against it so much.
Right. And I feel like when we kind of like be okay with where we're at right now, like you said, it's like you surrender to like the broader version of you, the broader perspective of you, which is God. And you allow yourself to like be kind of taken over by this trajectory of well-being, or this momentum or energy of well-being. And so you'll be guided, led, and inspired to contribute to the well-being of the planet, the animals, your life, your body.
And that might not be what you think it's supposed to be.
And it might not agree with these ideas or beliefs you have about what is a healthy body or what is a healthy way to have a healthy body. Or
Absolutely.
animals, healthy planet, whatever.
Or maybe that doesn't mean that all animals are going to be freed from camps of whatever they're called, like the
slaughterhouses, right?
Those slaughterhouses. Why did I say camps? Animal camps. That's what it feels like. Okay. But yeah, so I mean, and I think that I agree. Like, I mean, you know, scientifically we know that animals are different from plants in the sense that they technically feel pain. They have central nervous systems.
Right.
But how their perception on life and death and their attachment to their identity
and their perception on the pain itself.
Yeah, we can't really say for sure because we just can't. And, you know, there are certain things that like we as people create in our lives that are just man-made constructs around like time and death and, you know,
money.
And often we project that onto those around us and even animals. So, I mean, people will say like, oh, you know, I grew up with this dairy on this farm and this dairy cow definitely was so upset. But it's like, you don't know what their reaction is.
Right. Because I feel like they do have like a biological response to survive. Like that's just like a mechanism in the body and in the brain or whatever. So they have those initial responses to death and to even suffering or being afraid of dying in that sense, like that survival mechanism. But the broader perspective of the animal itself, I feel like, and again, like we can't know for sure, but what I feel like in my soul is like they don't really care that much. They have those physical responses and reactions, which stimulates an emotion. But I feel like they're attached to that broader perspective of themselves, which knows like death isn't a big fucking deal.
Yeah. And so it's like, you know, I mean, it kind of reminds me of this movie. Maybe, I don't know. Let me know if you've seen it, Brett. I know Genevieve has, but it's called like A Dog's Life Purpose or A Dog's Purpose. That movie made me cry. I know. Have you seen it?
No.
If not, we recommend it.
Oh, it's so cute. It's like a movie about a dog that basically just reincarnates over and over again.
And like does not see death as like a huge deal.
Yeah.
And like always comes, like at the end of the movie, he comes back. Spoiler alert, he comes back to like his like first owner or whatever.
As a different dog.
Right. From like his first life or whatever.
Well, as he's like older.
Yeah, but like every time he dies, he's like, oh, coming back. You know what I mean? He just doesn't really care.
And I feel like, you know, and this is something that somebody said to me, which could be perceived as a psycho. This person, when I wrote that post, he was like, well, that's like you saying that like it's not a big deal if someone were to go and kill you right now. And I was like, well,
on a broader perspective,
yeah. And you know, like as a species, and then I also said, but I mean, I'm not saying I want to die or anything. Please don't come and kill me, psycho internet person.
No,
but no,
you're not holding space for that vibration.
Yeah, of course. But so like the thing
we'll zig and zag and they'll zig and zag. They'll miss us.
Yeah. But you know, and this is something that I've heard from Abraham, which is so true. Like if a mugger was given your address and you're not a vibrational match to that, they will not, like, it just won't happen. Like it won't happen. They won't be able to find your house or they'll lose the paper. Like something will happen. It's just like the universe brings like vibrations together. And like, that is the basis that I've built my life on and I've attracted my relationship on and I've attracted success in my business on and health on. And it's like, you know, from that knowing, I feel like we as humans, although we know that everyone is going to die, we still get really fucking weird about it every single time. And I think that's more man-made than anything. And I feel like it's not until we experience a death of someone that's really close to us that has the opportunity to really be challenged in the sense where it's like honoring the season of that and the purpose of that life. Right. And I think that
it's kind of like expecting you would be in high school forever and then getting sad or upset that you graduated or whatever. It's like, it's just a phase of life.
Yeah. Like I have this one friend whose wife unexpectedly died and he has such a beautiful perspective around this now. Cause I've seen death of like loved ones, of people that were really close to their loved ones just ruin their lives for a long time. Right. But this man that I know who is also very like pretty spiritual, I feel like handled it in a way that is maybe how I would handle it if somebody close to me died, which is like, yeah, grieving, but it's
except
like
me though. No, I'm just kidding.
What'd you say?
I said except if I died.
Yeah, except for if you died, that would be the only exception. I would just be like a hot mess for the rest of my life. But yeah, you know, and it just really, he just has a lot of celebration and appreciation for the fact that they had that life together. And I just feel like he's like still living and he's still enjoying his life and honoring it for what it was instead of dwelling and letting it be this hole in his life. But he says like, it's not a hole in my life where something's missing. It's where I allowed love to flow into me deeper or something like that. I don't know. He said something like that before once and I was like, that's some deep ass shit right there.
You poetic motherfucker.
But yeah, I don't know. But I think that we're all very weird about death. And I'm not saying that if somebody that really, really close to me would die tomorrow that I wouldn't be upset. But I think that like,
because I mean, we still have like that same conditioning to a certain degree.
Yeah, like knowing is one thing and practicing it is a whole other level. But you know, day by day it gets better. we get better at practicing everything that we believe. But I truly believe that it would really just solidify that for me deeper beyond once I kind of grieved and honored my pain.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that for sure. I think that like, and this is where it goes back to our perception of death and pain. It's like, as a human being, I can right now, I generally have a very different perception of pain than maybe other people do. Because the example I use is like, I don't really drink that much, but about a year ago, I got really drunk one night and I slept in my car, right? And I got robbed, right? These three guys actually like came in. They pretended to be like undercover cops, but it was all like scripted and they did a really good job. Like I had no idea. But they took my money and my phone and stuff like that. But it really made me realize like, holy fuck, like I'm cool with this. Like they're just doing their thing. I obviously put out some kind of energy to attract that, obviously. And I was like I was drunk. And at that point, there were some things I wasn't really taking responsibility for. And it really like, I was completely cool with the experience itself because the experience itself is neutral, right? Like we only make meaning from it and put positives and negatives to it after the experience. And we make meaning based on our own definitions and belief systems, right? But the act of what happened is neutral. So I didn't even care. I was like, okay, this is making me look into something now. And it made me look into my money situation. And I was like, oh, I'm not taking responsibility here. And I was like, oh, cool. This is like actually setting me straight to where I need to go and shifted my focus into basically creating what I wanted to create. But I didn't complain about it. I actually didn't even feel any sense of being a victim. I was just like, just doing our thing. And that was a really big experience for me because it was like, if you look at people that, let's say, get their leg bitten off by a shark in the ocean, if you actually go and see, like, people might be like, that's so bad, that's the worst thing that could happen, like, that no one would want that to happen. But then if you go and look at some of these people, what they're doing now and the way they speak about it, it can be the most fucking empowering experience of their life. And it changes their whole perspective on life. It's kind of like a near-death experience, right? People completely shift their whole reality and the way they live and who they are, and they can flourish after having something that looks so bad, like a terrible car accident or you know, I don't know, a fire or something like that. So it's more just being like, I can think about this in whichever way I want. And if that's possible it's definitely possible for humans. I think it's more natural for animals. This is what I'm saying. It's like to have the broader perspective, to connect with the broader perspective and really find like the truth in what's more like actually aligned to who I really am.
Right.
Yeah. That pure positive energy. Right.
Yeah. And you know, I definitely relate to that. Like, I know that there was this time months ago where I was at a show with my boyfriend and this man like groped me really intensely. And it had like, in that moment, I remember having like this choice and my emotions come up. It happened a lot quicker than this, but it felt very slow to me. But it was like this choice to be victimized and feel like this man like disempowered me, violated me, and took something from me. And this this other choice, which is to know that like it's really not that big of a deal, and you know, to really know that I could really see what within me would be a vibrational match that at that point in time. and have a lot of compassion. And that, okay, and I think it's so important to clarify that that's not about blaming yourself or being hard on yourself. It's empowering yourself. And that also doesn't mean that like you're not, that you're condoning or saying like that's totally okay to be that way. But it's just, but it's just kind of acknowledging that that contrast exists in the world, and what within you rendezvoused with somebody that feels the need to do those kinds of things to women, or to do those kinds of things to poor passed out drunk people in their car. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, just like choosing to be empowered and take responsibility for it all, for better or for worse, even, you know, and this is like, to some people that maybe wouldn't fully embrace the law of attraction, this could sound like, oh my God, disgusting, like poor girl. But like, there was a time where I experienced a sexual trauma at a decently young age. And when I really reflect back on that, that was at a point in a period in my life where I was such a victim. And I experienced victimization in all areas of my life. And I'm not a vibrational match to those men or those women or those people anymore, because I'm not a victim anymore. And I can easily
like
say,
you don't feel like victimized by life or your circumstances.
Yeah, and they don't feel like big deals, because not anymore, because I just know that like nobody can take away my power, nobody can take away my love, nobody can take away my joy unless I give it away to them, right? And then because I don't really make that anybody else, like, because I know nobody else can take that away from me, I no longer feel vulnerable, which no longer attracts people that validate my vulnerability, right? So like, I just don't attract that anymore.
Right. And I feel like when you have that broader perspective going on, or you're connected to that broader perspective of like just not identifying with being a body, I guess, so much, or being in pain, or like your circumstances so much, you allow yourself the ability to know and to experience like your experiences serving you and being like happening for you instead of to you. And like you allow like the experience to benefit you and be a bouncing off point to where you're going, right? But it's also like you're allowed to be a human being and enjoy being a human being and want money and like blah, 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 blah.
Or a Chanel bag.
Right, or a Chanel bag, or like driving a nice car, or getting to keep your money, or not be touched by men in public. Like you're allowed to have preferences and you're allowed to have the life that you want. But it's like when these things are happening, when these contrasting experiences are going on in your life, it's like when you have that broader perspective available to you, when you're allowing yourself to be in touch with that, these things don't feel like such a big deal.
Yeah. And it really kind of feels like when we were younger, we would fight and we would just try and like say the meanest shit to get under each other's skin. Like oh yeah, well you're stupid, well you're ugly, well nobody likes you, whatever it was, right? And
no,
like,
we'd go for low blows.
We'd go for low
like
blows.
That isn't shit.
Yeah, it's not. But, you know, call it a lack of maturity or whatever. But I feel like when giving away your power kind of feels like that little child that chooses to kind of pretend like their sister does not get under their skin, which only infuriates your sister. Like, Jen would be like, if she was like, oh my God, Gianna, you're so stupid. And I'll be like, haha, yeah, good one. And just like fall unfazed. She would just like rage, red face, like, oh, I need to get under her skin. Because it's like, she couldn't take that from me unless I gave it, unless it was my trigger, unless it was my thing. So it's like, it's the same thing in like those other experiences where nobody can take it unless you give it. So like, and I really liked what you said, Brett, about how like all experiences are like neutral and it's our own belief systems that we project onto it. So the saying kind of came to my mind, which is like some Sanskrit thing, which is like the beautiful lotus flower comes from the ugliness of the swamp or something like that. You know what I'm talking about? It's like some Sanskrit saying.
Om Mani Padme Hum.
Ooh, Om Mani Padme Hum, right? Yeah. Is that it? That one? Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's right. Okay. What was that?
What did you say, Genevieve?
Sorry, I got a phone call.
Oh,
okay. What did you say? He asked you what you said.
The Sanskrit thing. It's like Om Mani Padme Hum.
Oh, okay.
I forget what. Yeah, it's like a Sanskrit thing. But in English, it basically means, I guess, like the beautiful lotus flower comes from the ugliness of the swamp. But it's like, who says the swamp is ugly, right? It's our belief systems that are projected onto the swamp.
Yeah.
Kombucha, damn it.
Yeah, just blow it that way next time.
No, sorry. It's okay. But yeah.
Okay.
So I think it would be really great. What was that?
No, go for it. Keep going.
What was that? I was just going to say, I think we should maybe touch on like spiritual bypassing. And like how, because I mean, at the end of the day, like I think that there is activism that is rooted in pushing against things, but I don't think that all activists are in the energy of pushing against, but I do think a lot of them are, if I'm being honest. And I think that at the end of the day, you just have to look at like, well, what is it that you want instead? What would you prefer? And be in the feeling place of that, be in the vision of that, and seeing what you feel inspired to do from there, which may lead you deeper into veganism. But it might lead you away from veganism. And for us, all three of us, it's safe to say it's kind of led us to be less attached to the idea of veganism and to buy a Chanel bag and, you know, and that contributes to the well-being because that's our deepest intention, which is, and our deepest intention that we're in alignment with, which is the well-being of the planet, the well-being of us, the well-being of the animals. And so if that from there you want to buy a Chanel bag, then that does equate to the well-being of the planet. But maybe your beliefs can't see that because your beliefs are
you're not allowing yourself to see it because of the limiting ideas you have on what well-being is.
Exactly.
For animals or for the planet or for whatever.
And how you perceive suffering.
Right. But if animals are more than their bodies and just like we're more than our bodies, it's like we can't understand what well-being would be for them in that
because a life is a blip in time. Like, although I believe all life is very significant and adds to a greater picture, in all reality, time is forever and it's been for a long time. So our lives are 80 years or however long, more or less, that we're on this planet. It's really not shit. Right. It's a blip in time. It's a grain of sand. And I think when you know the bigger picture and you're really in touch with the broader perspective, which makes you have to let go of this ego connection to your identity and makes you have to like be less attached to things. And that might be scary and challenging at first, but death doesn't really feel like a big deal anymore. And I think that grief is normal, but it's not like this fucked up, scary, hard thing that ruined your life anymore.
Right.
Totally. I relate to that. I love it. It's like I'm okay with feeling all those human emotions now and without seeing them as being bad or wrong. It's just like, no, this is what I'm feeling. And I guess now we've kind of practiced our way into being able to feel things and not really like drag them out and hold on to them. But I think that comes with experience and continually practicing, like, what do I actually want to feel like? And even in terms of what you said in your post, Gianna, it was like, well, if we, maybe that, like, not to take anything away from anyone's experiences, because like, maybe we chose to be in this experience, like, I don't know, when we actually come into life, maybe an animal chooses to come into that life. Maybe they actually know what's going to happen. Like, we don't know those things, right? So yeah, it's just like, we can't take anything away from anyone's own experience, but the focus has to come back onto the individual, onto us. It's like, this whole idea of activism is about taking responsibility first. You have to, like, the activism has to be within you first. Like, you have to really be able to do that to connect to the feeling of like well-being that we talk about. And only then from that place are you really going to be able to see the truth of what that can look like in the world. And it might not look like anything that's logical to what you perceive it to be now. You know?
Exactly. And people might think you're fucking crazy.
Or an asshole.
Or an asshole.
Or a privileged
definitely.
person. Or a plant-based Becky.
Right.
Yeah. But I think
what it all boils down to is like we're listening to our core truths and like our inner guidance and like what we feel is fundamentally true for us. When we strip away the bullshit and the limiting beliefs and the things that feel bad, we know our core truths, and that's what we're going to listen to over anyone or whatever someone may or may not say to us on the internet.
Yes, correct. And I think that's the key. The key to it is like, the more we can do that and bring that into our lives, is we're really going to become much more aligned in the way we live with our own truth and values, and we lead by example in that way. And then it's the only way to lead is by example, right? It's like, instead of pushing or attacking anyone else's belief systems because it doesn't fit in with yours, it's like, no, live your truth. And then you actually give other people the best opportunity for them to actually see that and connect with that and that energy and live theirs. So in terms of like, maybe we could talk about creating change. Like if people, because I know a lot of our vegan friends are watching, and non-vegans, it goes for everyone that wants to create some kind of change. They want to create more of what we prefer. Like for me, I actually do, I prefer that the animals didn't go through those things. Like that's just my thing. I don't want that. But
can I say something really quick?
Yeah.
So I just want to say, I feel like it's so important to be in touch with your deeper intention, because I agree. I don't want animals to go through that shit either. But it's like, why? Oh, because I want everybody to feel really good and live the best life possible. But what if that looks like death?
Exactly. Totally. Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like that want might be right in my mind, but it might not be the actual right thing. Like to take, because then I'm taking away from that experience. Like, so it's happening everywhere. Like we can't, it's difficult to really to put into words, but it just keeps coming back to like, you got to go back. You got to focus on yourself. You got to focus on yourself. It's the only way, really. It's the only way to create freedom and to create what we want in our own lives and how we want to feel. And it's the key, right?
Yeah, and also just like challenging the way you think, because like I think a lot of people who do feel
being open-minded,
like function from this place of like being an empathetic person, or like empathy for the animals, empathy
being
for the blah 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 blah, the good person thing. Like these are just like constructs that we've been led to believe make you a good person or doing the right thing or whatever, instead of taking a deeper look at why we feel like that makes us a good or right person, right? Yeah. Like this is, I just feel like we've backed this up based on everything we've talked about so far, but like how Gianna said, like I want good things for animals. Why? Like I don't want them to go through that. Why? Because I believe that thriving and that well-being is living, but that's not true, because when death doesn't actually exist, when you can't die, when you're an energy, when you're a soul, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Exactly. I think that like one other thing is to really invite people in general to, especially if it does trigger you, if someone eating meat does trigger you, it's like to find what the belief system is within you that is actually creating that. What meaning are you making that's making you feel that way, to make you feel that it's wrong or that it's bad. You can believe that, but just identify within yourself like where it's coming from, and also to create this connection of like oneness, to see that we actually are connected, instead of that separation when you get triggered. It's like, well, where in my life am I demonstrating those traits? It's like even the act of killing, right? Let's say someone kills an animal. Where have I been a killer before? Well, I've killed insects before. I've killed like ideas, projects. It's kind of like the same energy, and every single trait that we're seeing in other people is within us somewhere. We've demonstrated it somewhere in our lives. And I think that that's a big thing for people to really be like, in order to actually just be okay with how things are right now, not okay in a way where you're not doing anything that you want to do. It's just like, but actually being steady in who you are without losing your power, let's say, to be solid in who you are as an individual. It's like, you kind of have to understand that everyone has these traits. Like if you see something in someone else, that it's within you. And I would love people to find.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think that that's like something that has really helped me really love myself deeper. Or I feel like I really love myself at this point in life. And I feel like something that really helped me with that was to understand like how normal and worthy every part of me was. So like, this is what a body is supposed to look like. These emotions are part of the journey, and just because you're not seeing these parts of other people doesn't mean that they're not there and that they're not valid and normal. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I totally agree. I mean, I would definitely love for us all to kind of maybe share our point, like our perspectives on spiritual bypassing. And if you guys don't know what spiritual bypassing is, it's, I don't even know like the exact definition, but it's basically where people kind of, a lot of law of attraction people get a lot of shit for spiritual bypassing, because that means that they're putting their head in the sand and they're not actually dealing with the issues and they're just turning a blind eye. But to me, spiritual bypassing, why that offends so many activists and other people that maybe don't fully practice or fully believe in the law of attraction or fully understand it, is because they think that like by you avoiding the issue, you're not helping resolve the issue. But I feel like when you really understand
about that, sorry.
No. Really, because I was about to go into it. So
because I just feel like people feel the need to like not be open-minded when it comes to like law of attraction, because there's like this fear, there's like an identity issue, like they're overly identifying with a victimized aspect of themselves and they're afraid to let go of who they are. It's like that ego death, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I mean,
right.
But what I was gonna say is,
sorry to interrupt.
It's okay. Not a big deal. I was like, no, but okay, she wants you that badly. Okay. But basically, I feel. Basically, I feel that, you know, why spiritual bypassing is like such a bad thing is because they don't see it as productive. But I feel like when you really see and understand the law of attraction, you get that putting your energy towards what is wanted is really productive and actually dealing with those issues once and for all. And I think that it doesn't seem productive, but it really deeply is productive. And if you know that it's productive and it feels productive, spiritual bypassing isn't spiritual bypassing, or at least spiritual bypassing isn't a bad thing anymore, you know?
Right. Or it's like actually a productive thing to disengage with the energy of that which you don't want so that you can hold space for what you do want. Because like going back to living in a law of attraction based universe, that which you focus on, you get more of, right? In the world, in your reality, in your life experience. And so when you like, sure, awarenesses need to be brought to things so that you can shift them. But when you stay there and you push against them and you fight them, you only invite it more. Like you only invite it to stay. And
that's exactly, that's the same as me. Yeah. 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
Where attention goes, energy flows.
I feel inspired to bow out of this conversation. I also have plans, but this has been great, guys. But the rest of it, I feel like you guys have it covered.
No, it's perfect. I think it's been great so far. What do you guys think? Yeah.
Yeah,
I feel good.
I mean, there's nothing that I really feel inspired to add, but if you wanted something to add, I could definitely chime in on it or just totally hold space for you to say what you wanted to say.
Thanks. No, I'm cool. I love the whole thing.
Cool. Yeah, I agree. I liked it too. I think that
beautiful conversation.
Yeah, it has. Leading edge for sure. And I think that we're going to empower a lot of people that are feeling the stuff deeper down, and hopefully expand some minds too, I'm sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good shit.
Yes. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Whoever's watching this, I don't know what we're going to do with it yet, but thank you to everyone that watches this. And yeah, maybe whoever posts this, however we post it, we'll leave access into however we post this to find all of us online. So
definitely.
Cool. All right, I'm going to stop recording. So bye everyone that's recording or watching the recording. Okay.